Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Bennett, and it's episode 136, April the 18th, 2024. Recently, I've lost two good friends who've passed away. On March the 22nd, a good friend of mine, Pate King, who lived in Mullins, died. And Pate was a union representative for the Norfolk and Southern Railroad. He had been a paratrooper in the Army. He was very active with the Wyoming Democratic Committee and the Mullins Chamber of Commerce. Pate had coached Little League Baseball. He coached a little bit of high school football. And how I met Pate, I was working at the YMCA, and I started the youth wrestling program there. And this was in the late 1970s. And Pate walked in one day, and I never met the guy in my life, and he sat down. He said he wanted to get his boy Michael involved in youth wrestling. And he said that he had wrestled at Mullins High School back around 1960, and that he was a referee. So I helped him get Mike registered, and he told me that anything that I needed, helping with the youth program, that he would be glad to volunteer. And boy, did we need him. And we had regular matches during the week, regular season matches, and we would have tournaments. We would go to tournaments or have tournaments on the weekends. And Pate refereed almost every regular season match that we had over a period of years. Now, he lived at Mullins, and that was before they had the new road, and so he drove hundreds and thousands of miles back and forth from Mullins to Beckley and Beckley to Mullins on weeknights and weekends to help our program. He also volunteered for tournaments. He helped run brackets and do things like that. And when we would go out of town, he would be the first to haul kids, and we went to places in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, northern part of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Pate never received a penny for any of his volunteerism. And his son Michael became a very, very good wrestler, and when he got into high school, Mullins High School did not have a wrestling program. Their program had ceased, and so Pate was wanting to get the thing started back up again. And so he had to go out, and first of all, he had to recruit a coach who was in the school system, because Pate was not in the school system. And so he got the football coach, Glenn McNew, and later on, a coach named Dink Stump, and both had worked with young athletes before, but didn't know a lot about wrestling. And Pate had recruited money from the public, the area, to get things started. So he was very good at it. He got a lot of kids out. And one day he called me at the Y, and he said the school administration had gave them permission to have a wrestling match during school time at Mullins. And Big Creek High School, Fred Schramm, the coach down there, had agreed to come to Mullins, and they were going to let the whole school out. I think each kid might have paid $2 or something, but that was going to be an excellent fundraiser for the wrestling team, to get new uniforms. And he asked me if I would referee. And I said, sure. And he said, well, I can't pay you because we're doing it as a fundraiser. And I said, well, that's not a problem. I mean, all the stuff you've done for me. And he said, well, when you're coming down, he said, won't you bring some flip scores? We don't, we don't have that to keep scores of the individual matches. And he said, I don't have any. And I said, sure, I'll bring some from the Y. And he said, And our scales are not very accurate either. Can you bring a set of scales, doctor scales? I said, sure, I'll bring some doctor scales. And he said, well, while you're at it, he said, our wrestling mat, it's the same old mat that we used back when I was in high school, and it's chipping and flaking. And he said, why don't you throw a mat on the truck too when you come on down? Now, flip scores and scales are not that big, but a mat weighs over 2,000 pounds and it's a lot longer than a truck bed. But I said, we'll see what we can do. So we loaded the mat up at the Y, and here I headed to Mullins, and going down the road, the mat was sticking out 8 feet or more and almost dragging the road. And I think I had a half-ton truck hauling over 2,000-pound mat. And I was scared to death I was going to have a flat tire or the truck was going to break down. But we got down there and set it up, and it was beautiful. It went great. Good wrestling match. They made some money. And Mullins had some good wrestlers for several years. You know, I mean, his son Michael won 2 state championships, and Derek Hypes won a state championship. They had several kids that qualified over the years. And then later on, Pate helped rejuvenate the program at Wyoming East, get things started there in wrestling. But Pate was one of those guys that we went to several state tournaments together. We went to the Pittsburgh Classic. We did a lot of different things with bringing in wrestlers for clinics and stuff. Some things that people didn't know about Pate, you know, he was also an advocate baseball card and a card collector. He was one of the biggest in the eastern part of the United States that I found out later, but there's a lot of people didn't know about Pate, but he was a great guy, and really hated to lose Pate. And his family is still in our heart. His family, his wife Kay, and his daughter Pam, and he had a brother named Stuart and a sister named Susan Browning, and Pate's going to be missed for sure. On April the 5th, my buddy Jim Mihaliak passed away. When I went to Park Junior High in 1982, Jim was the trainer of the football team. Now, he had been a coach earlier with Neil Hawkins and Robert Frog Young, but he decided to go into the training aspect. And so Art Lambert was the head coach then, and I was the assistant coach, and Jim was the trainer. And Park had been down a couple years in football, and we were kind of getting the program rejuvenated a little bit. But Jim had gone to Clarksburg, Notre Dame High School. He played football there. He played football at Glenville State. Out of college, he went to Van High School and coached 3 years down there. And he told a funny story. They only had about 13 or 14 boys on the team. And he said they were playing this one team, and Jim called the same play the first half. He ran the same play with his best running back, and the other team couldn't stop it. They were doing pretty good and moving the ball, eating up the clock. And so they came out the second half, and he knew that the opposing team probably would spend halftime putting some guys in there to stop that one play. Now, keep in mind, one play. They didn't run anything else but one play. And so the second half, Jim runs another play on the left side of the line. It was actually the same play, but on the left side. And they won the football game. So he won a high school football game basically running 2 plays, and he would always laugh when he would tell that story. His wife, Rosemary, he had a brother named Tom and a sister named Monica. And when Jim got to Park, besides being a trainer in football, he coached track, and then later he coached wrestling. And he coached basketball for a few years and was successful at everything that he did. But now when we were coaching football, I had been running quite a bit, and I had run about 3 marathons, and I ran basically 10 Ks and 5-kilometer races. And so during the break in August, during lunch break, we would always spend all day practicing, and then we would take an hour during lunch so the kids could eat. And they usually sat in the bleachers at Park Junior High. And Jim and I would run laps around the field. And we would talk, and he said, I've never ran a marathon. I've always wanted to run a marathon. And I said, well, I've ran 3 of them. And I said, man, if you ever decide to run one, you need to run the Marine Corps Marathon, because that is just there's a lot of people there. It goes by the sites in Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. And I said, it's just a real special race, and it's a good one to start out with. And he said, well, when is it? And I said, it's usually the first weekend in November or the last weekend in October. Well, this was the 1st of August, and he said, do you think we'll have a chance to train and get ready for it? Let's do it. And so I got this Runner's World magazine, and it was like, train to run a marathon in 12 weeks or something. And so we pretty well followed that schedule from Runner's World. And we didn't just run during the day, we ran in the evenings. And we ran the Marine Corps Marathon that year. And it was a special occasion. Jim took his wife and his parents, and I took my mom. My sister lived up there, and so we had several people watching us, our families, and that was his first marathon. After that, we ran some biathlons together. He would ride a bike, and I would run, and we did a couple of team things. I think another funny thing with him, one time we were going to South Charleston to run in a race. I think it was a 10K. And a guy who was in a running club named Berman Caton, he wanted to go with us, ride with us, and said, okay. Well, Jim told me that he was going to get a liquor bottle of, I think it was a fifth, and put tea in it. We're going to kind of play a trick on Berman. So Jim was driving that day, and so he's got this bourbon bottle of iced tea, but Berman is sitting in the back, and he doesn't know. He thinks it's liquor, and we're passing the bottle back and forth, drinking this tea, and the whole time Berman's kind of not only amazed that we're drinking liquor before a race, but he was wondering about maybe getting home safely with us. And we drank about a little over half of that bottle. And then we got down there and had to race and got back home. Just a couple of days later, several other members in the running club, Berman had called all these people and told them that, man, them guys drank a bottle of liquor going down the turnpike, and then they ran a 10K. And I don't think we ever did tell him any different, but that was Jim's idea, and that's the kind of guy he was. He liked kids. He's always laughing. He enjoyed competing, and he was the kind of guy, if he said he was going to do something, you better not doubt that he would do it. If he says he's going to run 50 miles, he'll run 50 miles, and he has many times. And also, he got into some triathlons, and he decided he was going to do the Ironman triathlon. And if you're not familiar with the Ironman triathlon, I think it's something like a 2.5 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a marathon, 26.2 miles run. And Jim did one. He competed in it, and he always had that whatever it takes attitude. And he did that at age 40. And a little later, Jim became a coach cross-country coach at Woodrow Wilson High School and had some excellent teams there. He was kind of really got the cross-country program going pretty big time. And he lifted weights. He was a bodybuilder. He was 1980. He was the Mr. West Virginia Tall Man Division champion. He was always talked about when he and Rosemary were younger, traveling and all the states they had visited. I think it was like 47 states and all the national parks. And then even later in life, he got Rosemary into running, and she ran several half marathons and full marathons. They got into powerlifting, and most of the time up until then, she would go with him and support him, but she never participated. And it was kind of unique that in their later years that they got involved in those kind of things. But Jim was never had any children of his own, but he was always looking out for kids. I mean, I've noticed that he would donate money to several causes that involved the children, and he was a special guy. And I really I miss seeing and talking to Jim. I wanted to bring up both of those guys, and if you knew them, you probably could tell a good story with about either Pate or Jim, and it'll bring a smile to your face. And I once read a quote or heard a quote. Somebody said, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened." And so I want to spend the day thinking about Jim and Pate, and I think I'm going to smile a little bit, and I want to say God bless Pate King's family, and God bless Jim Mihaliak's family. I want to share a little bit of wisdom that Pate King gave me. He said, "Wayne, I want to give you a piece of advice. You only lie when it's to your advantage." And now I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but I've never forgotten it. These two guys are both unforgettable, and they bring a smile. Till next time, remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. This is Wayne Bennett. God bless you.